Hi, welcome again to the Old Principal. I am the Old Principal, and we have a half an hour program now to study a little English. Now, this should be fairly interesting. It's a story I've never heard before. And it's probably a tree that you've never seen before, too. Have you ever seen a quina tree? Or quina? I guess we'll ask Mrs. Ash. She's the expert on pronunciation. Malaria, 疟疾病, okay, and quina tree. With that, we need a storyteller. Fortunately, she studied Spanish. So, do you know how to say this?
Quina.
Oh, quina. Good. That's our American version of a Spanish word.
That's true.
Okay. So there you go. Go ahead and read to us.
Okay. Malaria has been killing people with its deadly fever as far back as history has been recorded. Physicians knew little about how the disease worked and why it made people sick. Since they didn't understand the disease, they had no way of knowing how to treat it, and until the middle of the 17th century. In Peru, a beautiful Spanish countess, the Condesa de Chinchon, came down with malaria, and her subjects mourned for her. No one thought that she could live very long. But Jesuit missionaries gave her a tea that was made from the bark of a mysterious tree. Before long, she was well. Everyone rejoiced. How was she cured? By drinking the tea. But where did the tea come from? Nobody knew for sure how the priests learned of this remedy, but there is a legend that gives a plausible answer. It seems that a Peruvian Indian became lost in the jungle and had a bout with malaria. He was burning with fever. He searched for something to quench his thirst and eventually stumbled upon a pool of water. He threw himself down at the edge to drink, but one sip told him that the water had been tainted by the bark of a fallen tree, known by the natives as the quina tree. It was believed that this tree was poisonous, yet the disease-ridden man was so thirsty that he cast aside these fears and drank his full. Much to his surprise, he didn't die, but he felt his strength returning. After walking for several days, he eventually found his way back to his village, where he made a full recovery. He told everybody about the pool and the taste of the quina bark. The people learned how to make quinine from the bark of a bitter tree, and they used it to cure anyone who came down with malaria.
I think I have malaria. Sorry for coughing. No, if I had malaria, I would not be here today.
Yes.
I would be sick in bed, and I don't want 疟疾. Have you ever had malaria?
No, and I don't care to have it.
You don't want to have it. Okay, neither do I.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're free. You're
Okay.
off the hook at least for a few minutes. Okay, so where are we? Malaria and the quina tree. Let's go on to the first sentence. Malaria has been killing people with its deadly fever. Okay, deadly means it causes people to die. Okay, fever is when your body temperature raises very 发烧. Okay, 发烧. And you are aware of the fact that when your temperature, your body temperature, 你发烧, gets to very high, then it's curtains, we say. Man, English uses these strange words, don't they? It's you die, you're finished. Okay, so and malaria has been causing people to die for as far back as history has been recorded. Okay, 从历史记载以来 Okay, then people have been sitting here dying from malaria. Okay, going on. Physicians, that's doctors. We all know what a doctor is. Knew little a bit about the disease. That means in this case, they knew little. 他们所知道的是很少很少. Okay, they knew a bit about the disease. But why did that matter? Because if they don't know how the disease worked, okay, then they don't know why people got sick. And in fact, it was, they finally discovered that it was a mosquito what was the name of the mosquito? Anopheles mosquito. How's that? I still remember my biology lesson, okay? Anopheles mosquito, and it carries a little bacteria or bacteria. It's called Plasmodium vivax. Whoa, that's pretty heavy. Even Mrs. Ash is over here smiling. You know why? Because she says, wow, you remembered something from biology class. Okay, yes, I did. Okay, physicians knew a little bit about, they just did not understand the disease, and they, of course, didn't know why people got sick. Going on. Since they didn't understand the disease, they had no way of knowing how to treat it. Okay, if you don't understand what makes you sick and why you are sick, 根本就没办法知道怎么样治疗 to treat something. We treat sick people. To treat a person means to 治疗他疾病. Until the middle of the 17th century. So the 17th century is the 1600s. Okay, we think the 17th century is the 1600s. Okay, 在石器century. How do you say century? 时代. And woo, something happened. Going on. In Peru is in South America. South America, 南美洲, 秘鲁, Peru. A beautiful Spanish countess. She's beautiful, and she is a Spanish 西班牙国的 what? 伯爵. Never heard of it. 伯爵, a countess. She is royalty. She is an important person. Okay. And this beautiful Spanish countess, 伯爵, okay, Condesa de Chinchon. You like that? That's my Chinese. Spanish, not Chinese. Okay, Condesa de Chinchon came down with. Okay, now, what does it mean to come down with? To come down with means 患上了一个疾病。Okay, 患上了疟疾病。Okay, and her subjects. Okay, So she was the one that was controlling the country. Subjects meaning the people that she controlled. 她所统治的那些人. Okay, the subjects mourned for her. What does it mean to mourn? When you feel very sad. Sometimes we say grieve. Grieve. You're 心疼的, and so you're mourning. Usually we use mourning after a person dies, right? But sometimes you can mourn before the person dies. Why would people mourn? Why would people 哀伤着感到很不舒服，很不快乐? Because they knew she was going to die. Okay, they were mourning, they were grieving. Going on, no one thought she could live very long. That's just the point. They knew that she would die soon. 没有人想她会活得很久. Going on. But some Jesuit missionaries. Okay, Jesuit missionaries. We're talking about 耶稣会的传道师. See, these were Spanish missionaries, 传道师, that went from Spain to Bilu, or in Peru, right? Okay. They gave her some tea. Does everybody know what tea is? Cha. In fact, even in America, they even call it cha. Have you ever heard that? They call tea cha. And that comes from Chinese. Can you imagine that? Okay. And the tea was made from the bark. Do you know what bark is? Bark is the part of the tree, the waipi of a tree. And it's usually bark. We call it bark. The bark of a mysterious tree. 很神秘的一棵树. Okay? Before long, 过不久, okay, she was well. 她治好, 没生病. Everyone rejoiced, 欢喜快乐. Okay? So everybody's 欢喜快乐. Now, we have to go on to the rest of the story. Going on, how was she cured? 怎么能够这个得医治吗? That's a good question. By drinking the tea. 她就喝了那个茶. Okay, where did the tea come from? From the bark of a mysterious tree. Where did the tree, is it the tea or the tree? Well, both of them are good. Going on, nobody knew for sure how the priest learned of this remedy. 这个治疗的方法，没有人知道。为什么这个耶稣会的这些传道士都学会这个治疗的方法？ But there is a legend. You know what a legend is? A legend is a 传说, okay? And sometimes these legends come from a long, long time ago, okay? And this gives a plausible answer. 可信任的或相信的一个回答. See, nobody knows, So, at least this is the story. So now I'm going to tell you the story of how they discovered this. Going on. It seems that a Peruvian 秘鲁来的这个印第安人原住民 became lost in the jungle. 他在丛林 jungle 丛林 okay became lost 就找不到怎么样回家失踪了也可以说了迷路反正他不知道怎么样回家了 Alright. Became lost in the jungle and he had a bout. Okay, now a bout with malaria. Now that's an interesting way of saying it. He had a bout. 他就染上了疟疾，染上了疟疾. In other words, he was somehow got sick. A bout. Usually, when we use bout, we don't use it. We say, "Well, I had a bout of fever." A bout means 我发烧一段时间，就好像现在没事。But in this case, this man had a bout. 染上了疟疾 with malaria, and he was burning with fever. Okay? So he's burning with fever. Burning with fever, that means that he is actually 发烧到什么地步呢？发烧的 burning up. Almost like he's burning up. Burning 发烧 okay, with fever. Going on. Yeah, he searched for, let's go on to the next one. He searched for something to quench his thirst. When you are thirsty, 你渴口, okay, thirsty. What do you want to do? You want to drink something. So we say in English, to quench one's thirst means to 解渴 you say 解渴 means to solve the thirst problem. Okay? Now he wants to quench his thirst. And eventually, it says here, he eventually stumbled upon a pool of water. Now, if you are burning with thirst, and you're very thirsty, and you stumbled usually means to 跌倒. But in this case, stumble upon, if you say stumble upon, see, two words. Stumble upon means 发现. Okay? 发现, to discover. Okay? So he stumbled upon something, 一滩水, okay? 水潭, okay? A pool of water. Now, usually a pool is very small, right? It's not big. But it's water on the jungle floor, okay? So it's 丛林这个底下 just right there, and here's the water, a pool, 一滩水. And he threw himself down at the edge of the water. 这个水边呢，他就threw himself down. It gives the idea he just, wow. I imagine he just put his head in the water and he says, water, water, water. Oh, I need water. So he's drinking. He doesn't care. Now, you and me, we would be, of course, we don't drink anything like that. It may be contaminated, 可能有问题啊，可能不是很干净的. But he was thirsty. He was dying. He needed water. So he threw himself down, 就扑在地下 and started drinking the water. Going on. But one sip, 一喝, sip, just, if you take here, let me take this here, a sip of water. There is actually water in here, okay? If you take a sip here, just a little tiny bit is a sip, okay? That's a sip of water, okay? So one sip, just drinking a little tiny bit of the water, told him, actually it didn't tell him anything, but 他知道, 明白, told him that the water had been tainted. Tainted, what does that mean? Tainted simply means 被, okay, 熟皮 tainted. Let me make sure. 被这个树皮染苦了, okay? In other words, a fallen tree, a tree fell down, and it's probably in the water, and it starts to 烂掉, okay? Starts to decay. And the bark of the tree, 这个外皮, 那个树的外皮, okay? Of the fallen tree, and the people knew what the tree was. This is the interesting thing. The people knew what the Indians knew that the tree, the natives, the 原住民, okay, they knew it as Quina tree. Quina tree. Okay. So here is this and they thought, it was believed that the tree was poisonous. 人家都觉得这个是有毒的. It was very, very poisonous. Moving on. Yet the disease-ridden man, this disease-ridden means that 他全身都有病. Okay, of course. He's a disease-ridden man, was so 渴到什么地步 that he cast aside these fears, 不管, okay, 他所怕的, he didn't even think about his fears. 他所怕的他根本不考虑. And he drank his full. And he drank. And he drank. Can you just imagine him laying on the ground and drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking? Going on, much to his surprise. 吓了一跳. Okay? 很惊奇啊. He didn't die. 他没有死. 反而, but, in this case, but, 反而, he felt his strength returning. 他的力气慢慢的恢复. Going on. After walking for several more days, so he's lost. Remember? He's lost in the forest. And he walks and he walks. Of course, now he's not thirsty because he drank the water, and he's starting to feel better. And so he walks and he walks for two or three more days. Okay, several meaning 2 or 3 more days, and he eventually 最后 found his way back, 找到回到 他原来的地方 back to his 村庄，找到路回去他的村庄 where he made a full recovery， 他完完全全的这个 full recovery， no more sickness at all. He probably drank a whole lot of that water too. So, okay, going on. He told everybody about the pool. So he told everybody about the 水潭 and the taste of the quina bark. And so they said, whoa, the 树的这个外皮 is bitter, 很苦啊。Very cool. But he says, whoa, I don't know what caused it, but somehow I drank this and it was good. Going on. The people learned how to make quinine. Do you know what quinine is? Quinine is, let's make sure that we get this thing right. Quinine. From the quina shu, okay? Quinine from the bark of the bitter tree. And they used it to cure anybody who came down with malaria. Strange. But we don't know whether the story is true or not. But one thing for sure, it sounds pretty good to me. And at least it's a pretty good story to tell. Okay, so now you can tell your story by writing to me. Here's my email address. My email address is theoldprinciple@gmail.com. And you can come also to our website at www.theoldprinciple.org. And with that, I want to invite you, join us the next time for another interesting story.